It's no doubt that Supernatural has consistently ranked among the top fantasy and horror television programs. The show featured a variety of murky monsters each week, including vampires, werewolves, demons, angels, spirits, and shapeshifters, and it presented just about every monster of the week tale it was able to. We all came for the monsters, even though Sam and Dean may have been the reason viewers kept watching Supernatural. Supernatural has thus given to us several incredible monsters that undoubtedly made the skin crawl on less horror-tolerant fans, whether they were eerie in their aura or appearance or simply scary due to their bloodlust. Here is a complete rundown of all the monsters that have made appearances throughout the 15 seasons of Supernatural. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Sirens. The beasts and entities featured in Supernatural are frequently taken from actual mythology and incorporated into the Winchester saga. Even though sirens aren't vampires or werewolves, they are nonetheless quite well known, and Supernatural portrays them in a terrifying way. Greek mythology gave rise to the concept of sirens, monstrous ladies who would sing seductive songs to tempt sailors to their deaths. The legend of the siren was brought to life in Supernatural, and these creatures now use their voices to entice humans to their demise. They can assume various shapes to entice and persuade others to take extreme measures to demonstrate their affection and loyalty. These actions are frequently violent or dangerous, and most of the time they end in a death of some sort. However, because they are uncommon species outside of Greece, little is known about them. The actual form of a siren is a monstrous, hairless, barely humanoid monster with slender, unnatural facial characteristics. They can assume several forms, like many other beings in the supernatural universe, to trick their prey, humans, and usually turn into someone who suits their victim's desires, such as a partner, companion, or anything else they may yearn for. Sirens have the ability to read people's minds, figuring out what they want and crave for in others, and then offering it to them through deception. This encompasses both mental and physical traits. They then infect their chosen targets with huge doses of what is thought to be the hormone oxytocin, which is commonly generated during childbirth, nursing, and intercourse, and is also occasionally referred to as the love hormone by employing a sort of venom gland in their jaws. When the hormone levels are this high, victims feel a profound sense of happiness and love for the creature that goes beyond only the physical and/or sexual. As acts of adoration and devotion, the entrapped are forced to carry out dramatic, typically violent, and often fatal demands only for the asking, because they genuinely love the monster to their very core. Contrary to many monsters, sirens don't actually feed on people. Instead, when their victims commit crimes against other members of their family, they experience a great rush of pleasure. The powerful emotions of ecstasy they experience are fleeting, just like the individuals they infect, and they soon grow weary of their victims and move on to find others. However, this fearsome creature also has weaknesses. Mirrors reveal their true form, and it is in front of a mirror that they take on their actual shape, similar to a wraith. Further, a bronze dagger that has been drenched into one of its victims' blood can kill a siren. Crocotta. Contrary to most of the more well-known supernatural creatures, the crocotta only appears once in the entire series in the episode Long Distance Call of Season 3. While its appearance is relatively unremarkable, only truly exhibiting enormous teeth, the way it entices its prey is frightening. A crocotta is a mythological creature that can sound much like a person, making it hazardous. It can entice people into traps it has set up by using the voices of loved ones. They are based on an Indian mythical beast. They were said to be animal-like beings that could imitate human speech before attacking and devouring their victims. The supernatural beasts have undergone an intriguing development as far as their portrayal in the show is concerned. It is frequently said in folklore that it calls to people and draws them deeper into the forest where it can consume them. This was mentioned by one crocotta who boasted that he was lucky to get 2 souls a year and that he was frequently frequently made to wait for days because people were aware of his kind's techniques even then. However, instead of just calling out to people treading lonely paths in the supernatural universe, they have acquired the capacity to use phones and computers, which makes it simple for them to capture people because they no longer need to go hunting. They eat their victims, consuming their souls as well. Technology, including smartphones and laptops, can be controlled by crocottas. Even materials that has been deleted can be found and changed. They have the ability to make phone calls, hack into them, control computer displays and webcams, and even make toy phones answer calls. They appear to need to physically touch the object they are handling in order to accomplish this. In order for the crocotta to consume their souls, they persuade their victims to either come to them to be killed or to commit suicide. Comparing the idea of physically consuming a body to the more violent and overtly terrible idea of consuming a soul, there is definitely something more profoundly frightening about the latter. Further, the crocotta are known for saying, "Come to me," and because they also live in squalor, it is sometimes enough to identify them. It is uncertain what the crocotta actually looks like. It might have a human-like appearance, but when it eats, its jaw opens and its big, pointed teeth are displayed. A hunter can defeat them though by stabbing them in the neck, since they are uniquely susceptible to spinal cord injuries. Strega. The main reason that the Strega is horrifying is that it targets children. When a monster or demon targets kids, there is an inherent creepiness and general awfulness which causes the hairs on the back of the audience's neck to stand up. The Strega is based on an ancient Albanian story that originated in Rome. While Strega is comparable to witches, they consume a person's spiritus vitae or life force. A person's immune system deteriorates after they lose this. In Supernatural, they primarily consume children's life energy, sapping it from them until they pass away, allowing them to live longer. Spiritus vitae, which translates from Latin as breath of life, is the name given to the life force that Strega suck out. Their handprints degrade and rot wood as a result. The life power they steal is returned to all of the children who are still living at the time the beast passes away. They can pass for humans in daily life before transforming into this horrifying creature whose appearance is almost as unsettling as its feeding habits. A Strega can transform into a human during the day to avoid being seen by hunters. The Strega can also change back into a hulking hag at night. They frequently seem to like portraying themselves as elderly women. However, this is not always the case. They also have superhuman strength, speed, and agility, making it really tough for humans to fend them off, especially considering the fact that they target children. As far as weaknesses are concerned, Sam once said that the Strega are immune to any weapon created by man or god. Although this was not totally accurate, they are susceptible to consecrated iron if they are discovered feeding on someone, and while it won't kill them, it will make them run away. Interestingly, the Strega and the Dementors from Harry Potter are similar in that both prey on the soul, but the Dementors feast on anything they can and, like the Strega, are unkillable. Changelings. Creatures that take and transform into children, like the changelings in Supernatural, are more grotesque than monsters that prey on children and hurt them in some way. A mythical character from European mythology is called the changeling. They are monsters that stand in for a kidnapped child. They have hollow eyes, a round, tooth-filled mouth, and discolored skin in their normal state. Unless observed through their mirror, they appear to be human. While the young changelings eat the mothers, the mother changeling feeds on the abducted infants. Changelings, under the direction of their mother, abduct children, take them underground, and occupy their homes in order to feed on the mothers of the children, specifically on their synovial fluid. The changeling that has replaced the child has the same appearance as the original child, but she or he is malevolent and behaves differently. They get their nutrition from the mother of the kid they have replaced. They fiercely guard their supply of food. They won't let anything stand in their way way of it and will murder anyone who stands in their way. The changelings move on to the next neighborhood as the mother is gradually fed on and eventually dies after a few months. The abducted children will thereafter be consumed by the mother changeling. It is quite upsetting to see mothers in the episode "The Kids Are Alright" afraid and doubting their reality due to the changelings. The changelings are extremely spooky in their real form, with darkened skin, hollowed out eyes and mouths with excess of teeth on top of that awful layout. Some mothers are able to recognize that it is not their child, despite the fact that they behave somewhat like children. This is because changelings behave in a robotic manner, repeatedly uttering juvenile sentences with little to no feeling behind them. Similarly, changelings have a tendency to treat individuals like lunch when they stare at them. They are stronger than humans, but rather weak in comparison to most monsters. Young changelings are not strong enough to open a door, but Djinn was able to engage a fully grown changeling in combat on about equal footing. There are two primary ways to deal with changelings, especially according to the supernatural universe. The first and the most efficient method is killing the mother changeling. The children of a mother changeling perish instantaneously if the mother is killed. A changeling's body will also quickly burn to ashes if you set it on fire.
Beat me with a wire hanger, answer still no.
Jefferson starships, the ultimate monster. Instead of being named after a creature from traditional mythological history, Dean Winchester, a fan of classic rock, gave this creature's name on Supernatural. Dean claimed that he gave them the moniker Jefferson starships because they are awful and difficult to get rid of. They were brand new hybrids of monsters that Eve has made as test subjects to see whether she could make the supreme supernatural predator. They were actually a fusion of several of the monsters Sam and Dean had seen. They had wraith-like spikes and vampire-like teeth. They had the ability to transform into anybody they choose. Eve made the decision to transform every person into a monster, making every soul on Earth her property in order to defend her children from Crowley's attacks. She relocated to a town and started creating the ultimate monster to accomplish this. Her first inventions launched an attack on a club and then spread to other people. The Jefferson starship was created to be the ultimate beast and was said by its mother to be smart, sly, and powerful. They were extremely skilled at passing for everyday people and could evade being discovered by traditional hunter techniques. Sam and Dean Winchester were thus unable to recognize the youngster they were riding with as a starship until Eve informed them of his identity. They were also portrayed as being very aggressive. As soon as they transformed into a starship, they would attack people. Unlike other recently transformed monsters, they exhibited no moments of uncertainty or confusion, nor did they exhibit any signs of any remaining humanity. Instead, they were just a monster. Jefferson starships are much more powerful than humans. A grown adult can be easily thrown across a room by them. They are more agile than regular humans and can move at speed that is similar to vampires. They can attack with their razor-sharp, retractable fangs, just like vampires. Like wraiths, they also have retractable spikes hidden in their wrists. It can be assumed that they fluidly change into many forms because, like shapeshifters, they can take on human form and mimic the clothing of people they transform into. By biting someone, they can transform them into starships just like werewolves can. Last but not the least, they seem to be wary of silver and can be killed only if someone rips their heart out. Although decapitation slowed them down, as shown in the show, it ultimately took Crowley's demonic forces to put an end to them. Doc Benton. While the monsters on Supernatural range from corny to unsettling and menacing, some of its most terrifying antagonists turn out to be humans, or at least former humans. Doc Benton is a prime illustration of that. In the year 1816, Doc Benton worked as a regular physician. Sometime during his career, he discovered the key to immortality, but after discovering that his body was wearing out, he started killing people to obtain their organs and other other body parts so that he could replace his own organs with theirs. John Winchester once used a chainsaw to chop out his heart, but Doc Benton survived because he was able to piece himself back together and carry on with his rampage. His technique of achieving immortality was not related to magic, at least not in the ritualistic or spell-like sense, but rather to science, which he had, it seems, invented himself. He claims that there is a formula implying that an alchemical process was involved. He did, however, steal other people's bodily parts and organs to restore his own when they wore out or were injured. This was probably done for efficiency, as he can still function when they are irreparably damaged. Additionally, he was able to impart his powers and the immortality formula to others. As far as his grisly appearance is concerned, Benton resembles the Frankenstein monster. His habit of stealing and connecting other people's body parts to himself coincidentally parallels the Stein family's harvesting practices, who serve as the show's actual Frankensteins. It is clear that Benton's sanity had become compromised as a result of leading the horrifying, everlasting lifestyle he had attained. Even while his patients screamed in anguish, he always remained composed while completing his procedure. Benton, however, stated clearly that he only stole other people's organs out of need rather than out of actual hate and sadism, despite the fact that he was insane and vicious. He is one of the most terrifying villains of the first few seasons, especially considering that Sam and Dean had to bury him alive because they were unable to kill him. Wraith. Monsters called wraiths can infect people with large amounts of dopamine and feed on the bodily fluids of living people. One was featured as the week's monster in the episode called Sam Interrupted, where a wraith was preying on asylum inmates. In Mommy Dearest, Eve gave her Jefferson starship hybrid creatures a few wraith characteristics. A third wraith, believed to exist, prefers to take out psychics. The brain fluids that wraiths consume can be withdrawn through a spike on their wrists. To quickly reach the victim's brain, they insert it in a weak region behind the ear. It can be used as a weapon by wraiths, however, it appears to be easily broken. It can be regenerated though. Victims of wraiths have been found with their brains dried completely after having their brain fluids sucked out. It is thought that the best place for a wraith to survive would be a mental hospital, because not only are the patient's brains delectable and drenched in dopamine according to them, but no employees would trust the patients if they claimed a monster was killing them, because the patients are all considered unstable psychologically, and most of them have some form of psychosis, schizophrenia, and/or other mental disorders. The mere touch of a wraith has the power to render a person mentally unbalanced. It has been demonstrated that wraiths have the power to psychologically destabilize people by physically coming into contact with them. The wraith that appeared in Sam Interrupted explained that they infect people by raising their dopamine levels and that they don't actually drive people insane. Instead, they merely give them a little help to let their inner issues and impulses take over. Depending on the individual, their inner issues will start to manifest as genuine hallucinations as they become progressively more emotionally volatile. It is truly terrible to fall victim to a wraith. In Patience, it was also made clear that a wraith carries an evil aura that psychics may detect. Initially chilly blue, its aura might eventually change to a furious crimson hue. Dee, a psychic, was stunned by the information. Further, wraiths are also incredibly strong and agile. Wraiths can have a conventional human appearance, just like other supernatural beings. However, when they are reflected in a mirror, their true faces may be seen and they can be distinguished as wraiths. Their true shape is that of a rotting human-like beast. Mirrors like sirens show wraiths' actual selves, and silver is their major vulnerability because even the slightest contact with it causes severe burns. A silver arrow to the heart will kill them. Werewolves. Werewolves, also known as lycanthropes, are a race of supernatural beings that are half human and half wolf that can change their appearance. In Supernatural, werewolves are precisely what horror book readers anticipate. They can transform into a human-wolf hybrid and are related to skinwalkers. Being carnivores, many of them consume humans. The majority of legends are true, as one bite can transform people into werewolves. However, they can also produce werewolf offspring in Supernatural. The perfect fusion of wolves and people, werewolves are humanoid carnivores. They eat local prey, which is primarily humans due to the expansion of metropolitan areas. When they consume a victim's flesh, they always consume the heart. However, occasionally they will consume more body parts as well. Only after biting a victim does one transform, which is how werewolves transmit lycanthropy. However, they are also able to give birth to werewolf babies. Their quick bodily changes make them a good fit for the description of predators. Their eyes mimic those of a wolf rather than a human, and their nails grow into long, sharp claws. The time frame of the transformation with purebloods may vary from the next moon to any time, and some people who are bitten do not survive the transition. In the show, Justin asserts that werewolves should live in packs rather than by themselves. Long thought to be incurable, the British men of letters discovered a treatment for lycanthropy that was successful in 1 out of 9 mice test subjects, injecting the sire werewolf's live blood. Only one of the 2 persons who were ever subjected to the agonizing treatment survived. This, however, is reportedly only effective in the initial stages of illness. It won't work if the werewolf feeds, similar to the vampire cure. Regular werewolves and pureblood werewolves are the 2 sorts of werewolves depicted in the television show. Regular werewolves can only transform into werewolves when they sleep on nights that coincide with the full moon. In the series, those who have the disease experience short-term memory loss, which frequently causes them to get confused about injuries that might have happened during the night. The werewolf's mind, especially a strong one, can absorb some aspects of their personality and fears even if they have no control over it and throughout the transition. Along with hunger, they may turn into their beast form out of repressed anger or fear. Consequently, depending on which feeling is stronger, a werewolf's attack may be subdued. Up to the 4th generation, werewolves that are closest to the alpha are known as purebloods. They can remember what happens during their change, and their human side has more control over their animal side. They have the ability to morph at any time. While in human form, purebloods can also use some of their abilities, such as increased strength and speed. Purebloods can also consume only animal hearts, although it is more difficult for them to restrain themselves once they taste human hearts. With each heart they devour, they will become more and more tempted to eat human hearts. Even if they can resist the urge to devour animal hearts, it is still challenging for them, given that werewolves can have children and that a 4th generation werewolf once lived. It is suggested that purebloods include both individuals who have been bitten by 1st, 2nd, and 3rd generation werewolves, as well as those who are their offspring. Being changed into a pureblood has been shown to still have a potential negative impact on a person's mental condition, despite the fact that purebloods have command over themselves in their changed condition. Bess Fitzgerald asserts that purebloods who are bitten find it more difficult to restrain their inclinations than purebloods who are born as werewolves. Last but not least are a subtype called grace-enhanced werewolves. The Archangel Michael created werewolves with heightened skills by mixing their blood with celestial grace and letting them drink it. These werewolves were more powerful, quicker, and immune to silver than their regular brethren. However, they were still susceptible to being beheaded, which is the only known method of killing them. As far as their weakness is concerned, they can be killed or injured by a variety of silver objects like silver knives, axes, stakes, bullets, and other similar items. A werewolf's greatest weakness is their susceptibility to silver or any item containing silver. Silver will harm them just by coming into contact with them. Silver cannot harm werewolves with grace enhancements. Rugaru. Another one of those terrifying former people who are now monsters is the Rugaru. In Metamorphosis, Jack Montgomery's transformation into a Rugaru is unsettling since he starts to yearn for the taste of people. In addition to being a strong supernatural being, the Rugaru also have a horrible past. These people are regular people who up until the age of 30 have regular lives and are completely unaware of the condition that will inevitably befall them. However, when they reach the age of 30, they transform into a monster with ravenous animal tendencies. As a result, they are unable to restrain themselves and will consume anything, including family members and loved ones. Things quickly deteriorate as the clock hits, as they suddenly have a voracious appetite. This illness is hereditary in nature and not caused by a virus. This gene will eventually cause the person to succumb to the impulse to feed and eat a human. The shift begins with a stronger desire for all foods, but it soon develops into a strong appetite for flesh, particularly human flesh. Within moments of the Rugaru's first bite of human flesh, the metamorphosis manifests itself quickly. There is no turning back once the Rugaru gives in to its want to feast on a human. It will then lose its human features and transform into a beast. While some people think that an individual with this gene can escape their curse, no Rugarus are known to have done so. As long as the Rugaru don't ingest human flesh, the final metamorphosis appears to be reversible. Unfortunately, the temptation is so strong that resisting it would be nearly impossible. Coming to their physical appearance, with a few evident exceptions, Rugarus look almost entirely human. Their skin is wormy and it is much paler than human skin. Skin folds and large veins are also present. While Rugarus that have not changed throughout time have red, bloody sclerus, fully developed Rugarus get demon-like pitch-black eyes. The Rugaru will behave like a predator after devouring human flesh, frequently eating fiercely and going on all fours. They still have all of their physical powers, but their human, emotional side becomes less prominent. Although they do have a complete memory of their previous human lives and occasionally show signs of emotion and empathy, their intense urge to eat always takes precedence. In comparison to humans and the majority of other monsters, a Rugaru is much stronger. They can easily snap bones and dismantle steel chains. Rugaru are a species with exceptionally keen vision and smelling senses. Speed is significant to a Rugaru as well. They can stalk and catch their prey because they move so quickly. A Rugaru is also incredibly resilient. Once it starts pursuing its target, it won't stop or grow weary of the chase. They are notoriously tough to kill and outsmart if they are on your tail. Aside from a few magical weapons like the demon killing knife and the Rugaru killing pistol, fire is one of the few things that can kill a Rugaru. Rakshasa. We all know that one of the most well-known horror programs ever is Supernatural, and the first few seasons heavily emphasize on the horror element as wonderfully demonstrated by characters like the Rakshasa or Rakshasa, a cunning and terrifying beast from Hindu mythology. They are renowned for their propensity for consuming human flesh, sleeping on a bed of bug corpses and changing their shape to resemble humans. Rakshasas eat relatively infrequently, fortunately for humans, because of a slow metabolism that hampers their digestion. Rakshasas are forbidden from entering a house unless invited, thus they live in poverty and some even wander the countryside in order to avoid drawing attention to themselves. The one from Supernatural was a clown who followed kids home from the fair, tricked them into letting them in, and then devoured their parents. They are not quite interested in eating children, and this has been attributed to the fact that they only eat once in many decades and thus prefer a meal with more meat on the bones. Instead of devouring little kids, they dupe the kids dressed up as harmless clowns to gain access to the parents. The Rakshasa can thus be quite frightful for anyone who despises clowns. Every 20 to 30 years, these Hindu creatures eat a few times. It's also likely that this creature is a nod to Pennywise from Stephen King's It, if its appearance isn't striking enough. They possess tremendous strength, effortlessly outclassing and mowing down people. They also have extraordinary hearing, as demonstrated by the fact that one was able to hear Dean's whole conversation while standing outside the range of human hearing. Another one of their abilities is superhuman speed, and they are capable of moving so quickly that they appear to be a mist-like blur. They also have the power to disappear. They don't have many weaknesses, unfortunately, and are resistant to everything but brass. The Rakshasa is among the spookiest monsters featured on mainstream television based only on its description. Djinn. Many people frequently mistake a Djinn for a genie. While many believe genies to be creatures that grant wishes, the Djinn is an evil being that employs deception and cunning to acquire resources. In contrast to traditional legends, Supernatural transformed these entities into monsters. They are a rare species of superhuman cave dwellers who possess the ability to cause strong hallucinations in people's minds. A few hunters, including Sam and Dean Winchester, have come upon them. Djinns are tattooed humanoids who prefer to live among expansive ruins with many hiding spots. They can poison their victims with just a touch, and they feast on human blood. The Djinn can employ the poison to either instantly murder their victims or to leave them in a coma-like state so that they can consume their blood over an extended period of time. Although they can read people's minds to discover their deepest wants, contrary to popular belief, the Djinns do not actually grant wishes like the genies of folklore. Instead, the Djinn installs a false reality in the immobilized victim's mind by using their poison to create hallucinations that are incredibly potent. Djinns are extremely strong monsters with extraordinary psychic abilities that set them apart from the majority of other supernatural creatures. They may possess a weaker form of reality warping. Although each victim's dream world is unique, it is typically the place where they feel their wish has been realized. The Djinn could cause sufferers to perceive other victims as apparitions in their dreams. When they are at their most vivid, these imaginations are so realistic that they even feature a fictionalized version of the Djinn that infected them and their victims. The Djinn's victims will feel as though they are living a full lifetime before their actual bodies fade away, since time moves slowly enough in the dream world. The only way out of the fantasy world is to kill oneself, at which point the person awakens. However, if they pass away in the dream by any means other than their own, they will actually pass away. The Campbell family is aware of a Djinn poison antidote. Djinn either have blue glowing hands and eyes, or their tattoos move and extend down their arms when they use their powers. The show also featured a second kind of Djinn, which Dean described as bastard offshoots. This kind feeds on human fear rather than human blood. They have the same ability as regular Djinn to disguise themselves as humans at will and then expose their luminous blue eyes to attack their prey. They have the same strengths and weaknesses as regular Djinns, but in contrast to them, they can turn a victim's insides to jelly and leave a blue handprint on the victim's corpse. In addition, this Djinn's poison causes its prey to dream about their darkest fears and pass out from fright, as opposed to making them fantasize about living in their happy place. Letting go of the dread is the only way to find relief. Both sorts of Djinns prefer to live in families and rear their own kids while hiding out in abandoned structures. As far as defeating a Djinn goes, Sam killed a Djinn by bashing its head with a golf club, despite the fact that silver knife soaked in lamb's blood is the only method a hunter is supposed to be able to kill one. Soul Eater. Ancient supernatural beings called Soul Eaters reside in another dimension. After dragging human souls from the material world into their nests, they feed on them. Once the souls are carried there, they are permanently imprisoned and can never escape even if their body dies. Humanoids with a long black cloak, a slightly twisted visage, and dark empty eyes were what the Soul Eaters appeared to look like. A Soul Eater could take human souls from the physical physical world and bring them into its pocket reality, which it termed its nest, which resided outside of space and time. A confined soul would likewise start to deteriorate, but Bobby said in the show that a soul couldn't be killed and that continued contact with the Soul Eater would just make the soul appear weaker and more vulnerable. In addition, Bobby claimed that after a Soul Eater has finished with a particular home, it would leave and build a new nest somewhere else, bringing its former victims with it as emergency food stock for hard times. A Soul Eater might also imitate some of the traits of a regular run-of-the-mill ghost, such as producing cold spots, EMF, and flickering lights. At least 3 times, hunters mistook Soul Eaters for ghosts when they were actually supposed to be hunting them. Traditional mythology held that Soul Eaters couldn't be killed. One could be trapped by a Celtic symbol, but they were generally believed to be impervious to damage. However, the men of letters discovered a sigil that, if painted on both the Soul Eater's nest and the home they resided in, would kill them. If a Soul Eater became stuck, its victims got stuck with it as well. However, killing a Soul Eater would release the soul of its victims, allowing the deceased to go to their afterlife and the living to reclaim their bodies. Interestingly, people from many eras can interact inside a Soul Eater's nest, since the nest exists outside of space and time. Golem. A golem is a supernatural clay creature that was created and given life by a rabbi. One in particular was made in the Vitebsk ghetto to safeguard Jews during times of conflict or slaughter. They are typically employed by the rabbis who animated them or their descendants. Typically violent and aggressive golems were created for battle and defense. The fact that one recognized Dean and Sam as friends after discovering they were descended from the men of letters shows that they are still capable of comprehending what is good and will not slaughter without cause. A golem has a massive build and a hefty body. It is also quite heavy, as evidenced by the distinct thudding sound it makes with each stride from its position in the show. Even towering, fully grown males like Sam Winchester cannot compare how much bigger it is than them. A golem is powerful enough to swiftly overwhelm and break a human's neck. It was capable of ripping a human in half once. It is capable of easily smashing through walls and lifting a fully grown man a few feet into the air. Guns, knives, and other common human weapons, as well as poison darts laced with magic, have no effect on them. However, notably, a golem that is wounded leaves particles of clay behind instead of blood, so it is possible to wound them. Now, there are some rules for raising a golem from the dirt and making it do your bidding. The mouth of the golem has a scroll where the owner would write their name. The person would then have total command over the golem. The golem's ownership is inherited by the next master and is usually passed down according to familial ties. The golem will still be somewhat obedient to its new master, even if that person's name is not put on the scroll that animates it. However, magic can be used to usurp control by taking the scroll away from the golem and having the caster's name written on it in its place. The golem won't recognize its new owner until the scroll has been transcribed and put back inside of it. The golem becomes inoperable if the ownership is disputed or if the scroll is taken away.
Dogs are seeing hellhounds, demonic pit bulls.
Hellhounds. Sam has referred to the incredibly lethal supernatural creatures known as hellhounds as being similar to demonic pit bulls on the show. They are a threat to both humanity and angels and mostly assist demons from hell. When human soul transaction with demons come due, a hellhound's primary function is to gather the souls of those humans. Most of the time, only those people can see them. According to Crowley, after creating the universe, God produced a wide variety of species, including hellhounds. The creatures were made so that the Almighty might have comrades. Hellhounds were meant to be God's best pals, in the same way that dogs are man's best mates. However, hellhounds proved to be incredibly dangerous and cruel, therefore God decreed their extermination. But Lucifer, who was expelled from heaven and moved to earth, was able to save Ramsey, a hellhound who was carrying hell pup litters. Hellhound numbers increased under the protection of Ramsey and Lucifer. Since that time, hellhounds have been used by demons from hell to collect the souls of people who made agreements with demons when the time came. Hellhounds are extremely tenacious and ravenous. Once they catch the smell of their prey, they will pursue it relentlessly until either they or their prey are killed, or until their master orders them to cease. In order to harvest souls, hellbounds frequently literally shred their victims to pieces. However, the majority of individuals are practically put to death by their very presence. Sometimes the victims would get deranged and kill themselves. It must be noted that it is incredibly challenging to trick or divert hellhounds because they are cunning and resourceful. Some of them are modest in size, while others are enormous. They cannot be persuaded or reasoned with since, like dogs, they are loyal and only respond to the demons they serve. Without killing them with one of his own larger hellhounds, even Crowley could not think of a method to distract them. Any demon can control a hellhound, but only a select few can completely tame one, much less several at once. Without the use of specific weapons, it is unknown whether any demons or angels could defeat a hellhound. However, one may be readily destroyed by an archangel. As a pet, Crowley has a hellhound. Crowley uses his hellhound, which is larger than the majority of other hellhounds, to combat smaller hellhounds. However, Ramsay, the mother of hellhounds, can only be commanded by Lucifer himself. Fortunately, there is one thing. Hellhounds can only be stopped by iron, angel blades, the Colt, or Ruby's knife. Although salt can be used to keep them out, they will still find a way to reach their prey. Don't make deals with demons is our only advice to keep these beasts at bay. Gorilla wolves. The many grotesque monsters that are encountered in Purgatory include the ranks of the terrifying gorilla wolves. They are gigantic quadrupedal creatures, and when they walked on all four limbs, their front legs seemed to work like a gorilla's. However, the way they moved was considerably more akin to a wolf. The tail of a gorilla wolf bears little resemblance to any of the two named creatures. The gorilla wolf has a slim, flexible tail that is more similar to a cat's than a gorilla's, which has no discernible tail structure, and a wolf's tail is bushy. They seem to have fur covering most of their bodies, if not completely. The eyes of a gorilla wolf glow crimson. It is unclear whether this only happens at night or under any degree of light. Unlike gorillas and wolves, whose eyes are positioned above the middle of their faces, these animals have eyes that are very high up on their heads. If one includes the Leviathan's real shape, which is more akin to an amorphous black slime, they are one of only two creatures so far observed in Purgatory who do not appear humanoid. Strangely, gorilla wolves also seem to cooperate as a group, another characteristic they share with the Leviathan, unlike other monsters in Purgatory. Although little is known about their abilities, they might have some characteristics in common with other monsters. Improved speed is one of them. They are unaffected by Purgatory's dense cover and can move at high rates of speed. The vulnerabilities of gorilla wolves are not as well known, just like the lack of knowledge about their strengths. But as has been seen, a skilled hunter like Dean Winchester was able to get away from them with just ordinary weapons. Wendigo. The second of Supernatural's 327 episodes, Wendigo is one of the show's most well-known episodes. It gave rise to the show's catchphrase and one of its greatest lines, saving people, hunting things, the family business. Although old, the film's titular monster was fantastic and frightening. Wendigos are cannibalistic, possessive animals that originated in Algonquian folklore. They are immortal and have incredible speed and are also the first supernatural beings that the Winchesters hunted in the series. They also have insanely sharp senses, along with being able to mimic human voices. Wendigos were originally people who were compelled to consume human flesh in order to survive. As a result, they evolved into monsters with few of the characteristics that made them human in the first place. Following their change, they develop a craving for human flesh and only consume it. Despite the fact that their name is said to signify evil spirit, it is still a creature. hunter. Wendigos are also the epitome of gluttony, excess, and greed. Never satiated after slaughtering and devouring one victim, they are always on a lookout for more. Wendigos frequently only kidnap people and store them as food for later consumption. According to Sam and Dean, Wendigos are superb hunters, both during the day and at night. It's pretty much the ideal hunter. It is wiser than you are, and this gadget makes an excellent nighttime hunter, but it makes a good hunter during the day. Wendigos are rarely defeated during the day since they prefer to hunt at night, but it is nearly difficult to do so when they are out at night because that is when they prefer to hunt. Wendigos are much more frightening because despite their animal-like appearance, they still possess human intelligence. Wendigos are challenging to injure and even kill, although it is virtually impossible to beat them at night because that is when they prefer to hunt. There are few chances to do so during the day. Despite the beast's unfathomable might, there are techniques to guard against the Wendigo. A Wendigo can only be killed by fire. They are extremely quick, intelligent, and adept at avoiding heat, which is a problem. The use of Anasazi symbols can deter them and prevent people from becoming their prey. The Scarecrow. The Scarecrow was a creature that made an appearance in the same named episode of Supernatural's first season. This is a sentient scarecrow in a field that lures people off the road to capture them, as one might think. Also appearing unbeatable was the Scarecrow, which was unaffected by Dean's gun. However, the Scarecrow differs from other monsters because it is not a monster in itself. It was just a vessel that another entity was using to terrorize people. According to legend, Scandinavian settlers carried an ancient tree with a resident pagan god to the United States. Ever since then, the residents of Burkittsville, Indiana, sacrifice a young man and a young woman every year to secure the success of their town and its agriculture. The deity is known to kill the pair with a hooked blade, sometimes known as a scythe, while taking the shape of a scarecrow built from the remains of its past victims. In the episode, it was discovered that the scarecrow was a form of the Norse god Vanir. The residents of the town where it lived eventually offered strangers as sacrifices to it in an effort to maintain the blessed status of their neighborhood. Burning the sacred tree that gave this monster its strength is the only way to get rid of it. Scarecrow's reputation as malevolent or frightening beings most likely derives from two sources. Scarecrows are associated with crop planting, crop protection, and seasonal change. A time of rebirth after a long gloomy winter, spring was revered in rural societies. This cycle includes sacrifice. That which grows and reproduces till it is reborn in the spring is killed by the winter. The notion that a deity or force required a gift to guarantee the success of the new season also existed in many societies. The Vanir was a collection of fertility-related Norse gods linked to ritual sacrifice. Effigies of the gods were built, and this is perhaps where scarecrows got their start. Scarecrows also have characteristics that make them terrifying. They appear human but lack facial expressions. Fear is induced in us by our incapacity to read facial expressions, just like with clowns. Thus is the lore of the scarecrow. No. Moloch, pagan god. Avid fans of the show will remember that the Bishop family exploited Moloch, the god of sacrifice, for more than a century in order to amass wealth. Moloch is remarkably similar to a Canaanite god of the same name. Moloch is portrayed as having a bull's head and enjoying the sacrifice of children. There is some proof that this god was revered in Carthage as well. He also resembles Cernunnos, a horned Celtic polytheist god, in several ways. Celtic fertility, life, animal, wealth, and underworld deity Cernunnos. Cernunnos is portrayed as having stag-like antlers, occasionally carrying a currency bag, frequently sitting cross-legged, frequently connected to animals, and carrying or donning torques. Moloch was kidnapped by a bishop family member in 1898, who then starved him until he agreed to give the family wealth in return for a blood sacrifice once a year. From 1898 1998 to 1997, the family fed Moloch annually, which kept them wealthy. When the family's patriarch Barrett Bishop passed away in 1997, his son Barrett Bishop Jr. declined to carry on with this arrangement. Instead, in an effort to make Moloch starve to death, Barrett imprisoned him. In 2017, Barrett's half-brother Pete Garfinkel located Moloch, who offered to make him wealthy in exchange for food. Pete took Darren Boston and Jared Hayes hostage and offered them as sacrifices to Moloch. Moloch required more blood than usual to regain his full strength and give Pete his promised wealth because he had been starving for 20 years. The British men of letters became interested in Moloch's killings and dispatched Sam and Dean Winchester to look into it. Pete captured Dean and imprisoned him in a meat locker with Moloch while he pursued Barrett. Finally, just as Sam was about to break in after killing Pete, Dean stabbed Moloch with a meat hook in the side. Sam drew Moloch's attention and fired the Colt through his chest. Moloch was instantly killed by the renowned gun's power, turning him into a puddle. As a pagan god, Moloch is technically immortal and also has the ability to warp reality. He was also invulnerable as regular weapons could not take him down, making him extremely tough to injure or slow down. At his peak, he also possessed super strength and super speed, but since he was starved, he could not showcase any of his abilities. In fact, the only way to keep Moloch at bay is to confine him and starve him, reducing his strength. Ghouls, an undead creature that consumes recently buried corpses, is commonly referred to as a ghoul in popular culture. Ghouls are a particular kind of monster in supernatural and not an undead creature as mostly seen in pop culture. Ghouls are scavenging animals that inhabit cemeteries and often consume the flesh and blood of the deceased. They don't consume only at night. They consume anytime they get a chance. Ghouls occasionally switch to feeding on living people rather than the dead. In addition, ghouls may assume the shape of any victim they have consumed, whether that victim is still alive or has passed away. They can only be killed by having their heads completely severed or otherwise destroyed. Striking their brains repeatedly works too. They have the ability to leave behind recognizable fingerprints that, at very least, can be traced to them while they are utilizing a single form. If their fingerprints alter along with their shape, is a mystery. In one instance, the police were able to match a ghoul's fingerprints from a murder scene to those he left at a bank robbery. It is unknown if his fingerprints would have been different if he had used a different form, because he never switched between them. As long as they still have a bit of that person to feed off of, a ghoul can revert to a prior form. They could also have a preferred shape that they utilize on a regular basis, such as a victim. In one instance, the ghoul who had a preferred form even went so far as to adopt the man's name. As far as their powers go, ghouls have the ability to change into any person, although they can only do so if it is someone whose flesh they have already consumed, whether they are alive or dead. Ghouls acquire the memories of a person they are impersonating, just like shapeshifters do. Ghouls are rumored to move more quickly than people, at least enough to flee after a surprise attack without being spotted. In the television series 2.5 Men, Sam made a list of the creatures that could move with superhuman speed after defeating a monster that took on human form and had superhuman speed. Ghouls were the first on the list. They were looking for shapeshifters and the alpha shapeshifter, which Sam and Dean subsequently discovered. Ghouls are more powerful than humans. Although they can overwhelm a person, they can also be resisted. Dean managed to momentarily repel 2 ghouls in caged heat without the use of any weapons or firearms. They are among the lesser monsters as a result. Because ghouls are nimbler than humans, one of them was able to rapidly enter the ventilation shaft and seize Sam and Kate Milligan. Ghouls are tougher than people since one of them survived a shotgun blow to the torso while simply being shocked. Although they are not completely defenseless, due to the increased capabilities that ghouls possess, such as taste, one of them was able to taste Sam's blood and discover the demon blood in his body. However, all of these powers don't mean that they don't have weaknesses and can't be destroyed. The head must be completely removed or destroyed to kill a ghoul. A ghoul can be killed if they sustain enough head trauma even without being beheaded. At one point, Djinn claims that beating their brains in is just as effective as beheading. According to Edgar, the Leviathan additive Vamptonite also kills ghouls and vampires. Demons are significantly more powerful than ghouls, as evidenced by the fact that Crowley's demons kidnapped 2 ghouls. So yeah, demons will win against ghouls any day. Daeva. A strong and distinctive sort of demon, daevas operate differently from the majority of other demons. They may be highly hazardous since they can move around on a terrestrial level without a vessel. Only their shadows, which they need to produce, can be seen because they are normally invisible. They may be called to appear in certain areas by use of a ceremonial altar and amulet and appear to be able to move around like normal demons. They rend and tear flesh with their claws. They are far stronger than any man, as well as higher black-eyed demons. They simply require light to move freely. Thus, it's feasible that they can fly. There is not much known about this type of demon. Daevas are creatures that demons employ as invisible killers, similar to hellhounds. Daevas are human-like shadows that are unseen. When that control is lost, they are known to turn against the people who once had it. Meg uses a dark altar to call the Daevas. Caleb informs Dean Winchester that the Zoroastrian symbol, which resembles a Z with a circle in the middle, is a sigil for a daeva and is an example of ancient magic that may have existed up to 2,000 years before the birth of Jesus. Although Meg has some control over the daevas, when her black altar is destroyed, the daevas seem to turn against her and drag her out of control, throwing her through a window and plunging her many stories. Meg soon displayed a pendant with the daeva symbol that gave her influence over them, indicating that all of this was probably an act. She used the daevas to attack all 3 Winchesters after John Winchester was drawn out of hiding by her apparent defeat. But Sam Winchester was able to drive them away with a flare gun because shadow demons cannot manifest in a room with enough light. Since they are such quirky creatures, they have quirky weaknesses too. They are scared of the light and can be repelled by it. They can be controlled by black magic as well. Fairies. Fairies are cunning mythical creatures who may take many different shapes and are definitely not the pretty pastel-colored ones that pop culture has ingrained in the brains of young boys and girls. In fact, they are so secretive that only those who have visited their world or if they wish to be seen can see them. They are shown to be the origin of reports of UFOs and other extraterrestrial encounters on Earth. There are several ideas as to why they kidnap humans, one of which is to carry the victims to Avalon, where they will serve Oberon, king of fairies. Fairies are defined as magical and mischievous beings from the land next door and appear in a variety of shapes and sizes. Avalon is seen as being in another dimension or world. The 2 types of fairies are divided into 2 groups, the bright fairies and the dark fairies. There haven't been many specifics though on categorizing fairy classes. Despite having many varieties, fairies have a society and a judicial system known as the Fairy Tribunal. The destiny of creatures that disobey the allegedly pre-existing laws of their species is decided by this court. As was demonstrated when a fairy by the name of Gilda brought her former human slave before their tribunal, this is not only a problem for fairies. Despite being of diverse types, all fairies appear to work together. One of them said fairies are all about energy, suggesting that they are perceptive to said energy. The leprechaun that appeared in Clap Your Hands If You Believe was able to determine Sam Winchester's lack of a soul, since it was said that human souls had a certain perfume. Fairies are said to be all about energy, making them very strong magical beings. They can cast spells. As with crossroad demons, leprechauns have been demonstrated to make bargains in order to cast spells. Only those who choose to view them or those who have visited their world and returned may see them. The fairy in question still has this capacity after passing away, thus those who haven't visited the fairy world are unable to view view their remains. Leprechauns are a type of fairy that has the ability to move things mentally, so yes, they are capable of amazing feats like telekinesis. Leprechauns also have the ability to teleport instantly from one place to another. People can travel with good fairies. Good fairies can transport individuals to different locations, as demonstrated by Gilda's ability to transfer Jerry to Avalon. A leprechaun demonstrated the superpower known as soul reading, which allows one to determine whether or not another person has a soul simply by looking at them. Fairies are eternal souls, which means they are immortal. A fairy's power varies depending on its kind. Redcaps, the Wicked Witch, and leprechauns are all capable of throwing people about, as are tinks, who can knock them around by crashing into them. Tinks, a different kind of fairy, have wings. Powerful fairies and leprechauns like Gilda have the ability to distort reality, which they achieve by causing someone to act dead without any external input, much like hex bags. This is referred to as reality warping. 3 freedom warriors might be changed into a cowardly lion, a scarecrow, or a tin man by the fairy known as the Wicked Witch. Gilda was also able to change 2 pistols into feathers and a false sword into a genuine sword. They are thought to share a variety of skills, including magical knowledge, such as the ability to cast spells as a result of their knowledge and nature, invisibility, so that they can avoid being seen by humans who haven't visited the fairy realm, enhanced strength, possibly immortality, and telekinesis. However, certain types of fairies may only possess certain special abilities, such as flying. Additionally, they have arithmomania, a mental illness that has been linked to obsessive-compulsive disorder. People with this illness experience an intense need to count everything around them or the things they do. Because of this, and regardless of how strong any fairy may be, if someone puts sugar or salt in front of them, they must stop what they are doing and count each grain individually. They can communicate with people and be begged for favors by being left a dish of cream. If fairies consume cream, they become inebriated just like humans do when they consume alcohol. As implied by the leprechaun's remark that he is undeterred by Lucifer, they assert to have talents which they refer to as true magic that are superior to those of Angel. He asserts that he has the ability to save Sam's soul, albeit obviously not for free. This is a feat that defies Castiel and the King of Hell. His assertions were never corroborated though. When called by spells to negotiate with people, fairies frequently offer their services in exchange for payment and are bound to stay there until a spell banishes them. Fairies, like many other magical beings, have flaws that may be exploited to your advantage. The only way to stop them is by using a spell to send them to their domain, because none of these ways have been shown to be able to kill them entirely. The aforementioned isn't entirely accurate though. If a fairy is exposed to an extremely potent electromagnetic field for a long enough period of time, they will lose control of themselves and explode. Djinn was able to kill a fairy by trapping it inside a microwave oven, though the effect on a stronger fairy is unknown because the one Djinn killed was very weak. Fairies despise iron since it has been shown to be damaging to them even though it does not necessarily kill them. Silver may harm and even kill evil fairies. If someone pours something in front of them that contains a lot of grains, they must pause and count each grain individually. They do it with full conscious of their actions and with much reluctance. A fairy will blow up if exposed to microwave radiation for a long enough period of time. They also enjoy cream, which makes them drunk like alcohol. Magic allows for the summoning, binding, and banishing of fairies. Once exiled, fairies are impossible to return unless summoned once more. Another one of their vulnerabilities is poppy extract. Poppy extract could be harmful to the Wicked Witch. The ruby slippers also has the potential to murder the Wicked Witch. Even the Wicked Witch couldn't escape the devil's traps and protective enchantments of the Men of Letters. A changeling's body would quickly burn to ashes if you set it on fire, making fire another one of its weaknesses. Their family are a further source of vulnerability, and killing a mother changeling would instantly kill her offspring. In a mirror, a changeling's actual identity is shown. Therefore, they also view mirrors as a vulnerability.
Where is she?
Arachne. An arachne is a creature that can build robust webs, exactly like actual spiders, making it simple for them to ensnare their prey. They have several morphological characteristics with spiders, including their crusty skin and white eyes with big sky blue irises and black pupils. They may, however, mimic regular human appearances as seen in Unforgiven. In order to spread their species, they are also capable of biting people and transforming them into spiders. Even people can be poisoned to death by arachnid bites. It is assumed that they consume human flesh as food. They have multiple eyes, which causes their field of vision to be divided into different images. They have only one weakness and multiple strengths, which makes Arachne a powerful opponent. Arachne can only be killed by beheading. Arachne are physically so strong that they could easily hurl a fully grown man across a room. They can move with extraordinary flexibility. They can move more quickly than any person because of their incredible speed. They have the ability to spin powerful webs like actual spiders do, which they can use to entrap their prey. Similar to real spiders, Arachne have increased eyesight that is divided into several lenses. Arachne are unaffected by fire and gunfire. They have at least two different types of venom, one of which is deadly and the other of which transforms people into arachne. They transmit the poison by bites, just like spiders. From their wrists, Arachne may release poisonous stinger. Arachne may regenerate its limbs in a manner similar to real spiders. Khan worm. Dean Winchester gave the new category of supernatural being she had created, the Khan worms, her name. It had no official name because it was brand new and no one had given it one by humans. The Khan worm evolved into a second kind, which Dean likened to a first-generation cousin. This version does not take over the host body. Instead, this particular worm behaves more parasitically. This thing had two large curved black teeth and it had the appearance of a brown worm. The second variation featured little black pincers at its back end, a black body that led to a red patch, and two enormous white pincers that protruded from its front. It was also smaller and sleeker than the first variation. The Khan worm was a parasite that entered individuals' heads by the mouth or ears and took control of their behavior. Dean likened it to 12-inch herpes and claimed it was similar to a Khan worm on steroids. It could seize, leaving dark green muck in its victims' ears after possessing them if it so desired. When hurt or in agony, it also lets the same muck stream out of its victim's nose. The Khan worm's second iteration was different from its predecessor in a number of ways. This variant absorbed all body fluids, driving the host insane with hunger and forcing them to drink everything they could find. Eventually, this variety led the host to kill and consume other people's blood. This particular worm behaved more parasitically, drying up its host before departing. The Middle East appears to be where this variant first surfaced. This version forced itself down the host's throat and into their mouth, as opposed to the first, which entered through the ear. Through the ear, it might infiltrate a person's body and exert influence over their behavior. It significantly increased a person's strength while they were under its control. The hosts have no recall of the time the Khan worm had them under control. It had the ability to possess people, although more in the manner of the Bisans than that of angels, devils, or ghosts. It had access to all of the memories of the host while it was in its possession. Since its actual form was so fragile and feeble, this was its main power. The second iteration of the Khan worm lacked this ability in a powerful enough form. Rather than seizing total control, it forced the host to consume copious quantities of liquids and wage war on others in order to move on when the host became too dry for it to live. A host with a strong will could fight this off for a while. Khan worms have the ability to move. One of the hosts might be brought back to life by at least one worm after his death. Since the variant doesn't have control over his host's body, it couldn't do it. Its true form was little and feeble. but it had the power to amplify whatever host it had seized. This ability was also present in the second form, although it was less potent than in the first. The worm made its host more resilient, enabling them to withstand significant damage and bullets. However, the second variant would depart from the host if the host suffered a fatal injury. The worm could jump from host to host with ease when it wasn't possessing anyone because it was so swift and agile. The variant was less agile than the original, but it was still nimble and was easily crushed. Despite their agility, the Khan worms are readily crushed due to their size. Electricity could harm the Khan worm. Long-term exposure might be fatal. On the other hand, electrocution had no effect on the variant species. By abstaining from liquids for an extended period of time and being forced close to sources of intense heat, a variant of the Khan worm that depended on hydration can be driven from a body.
Very bad!
Wood nymph. A strong supernatural species and sort of fairy, wood nymphs are primarily associated with forested and wooded environments. In general, wood nymphs are kind and sociable. In accordance with folklore, youthful wood nymphs roam the woods, according to Mrs. Butters. Evidently, young wood nymphs don't, because she called it a young one's game. They might turn bloodthirsty in their fierce hostility if their house and family are harmed. After being informed that she could not go back to her native land, at least one wood nymph was ready to adopt a group of people as her family. Mrs. Butters, a wood nymph, served as the bunker for the men of letters housekeeper from World War II until the American chapter house was destroyed in 1958, as well as for a brief period in 2020. Cuthbert Sinclair enhanced the men of letters bunker's strength by using Mrs. Butters' magic. As soon as she uses it, it flashes green. She made a bouquet of flowers right away for Sam to take to his date. She made Jack a smoothie-flavored weakness potion since she was an expert potion maker. The Men of Letters bunker was given additional oomph by Mrs. Butters, who used her influence to power all of the bunker's functionalities. By using magic of some type, Mrs. Butters was able to fix Dean's broken TV. It is reasonable to infer that she is skilled at fixing electronics as well. Mrs. Butters can use her fingertips to harvest data from technological equipment, although this was possible due to her connection to the bunker. Mrs. Butters was able to place the bunker and herself on standby mode for many years. She may use her power to change into a green mist. She had clairsentience as well. Mrs. Butters could tell from one look at Jack that he was not a human. She healed Sam's torn nails before she left, demonstrating her skill as a healer. Mrs. Butters has the ability to switch between human and her real nymphal form. She may also change only her eyes without changing completely. Mrs. Butters' eyes are a vivid green color and shaped like nymphs. She possesses more strength than an average person. With her own hands, she quickly severed the head of a Thule member. She even used telekinesis to throw a frail Jack away. Later, she used the same power to restrain Sam to a chair and prevent Sam from firing his weapon at her. Later, she telekinetically threw Jack, Sam, and Dean, knocking them to the ground. Mrs. Butters teleported out of the supernatural guarded Men of Letters bunker as well, using her teleportation powers. Vampires. The term vampire refers to a race of blood-sucking supernatural beings that were formerly humans. The Winchesters, Gordon Walker, and other hunters have all faced them. However, it has been noted that coming across a vampire is exceptionally uncommon because hunters have driven them almost to extinction, even though due to their capacity for transfusion-based reproduction, only one is required for them to repopulate. The alpha vampire is the ancestor of all vampires. One of the supernatural creatures in the series that recurs the most is the vampire. In Apocalypse world, there are vampires. Compared to the main universe, they are more ferocious and savage. Given that they were formerly mortal, it makes it natural that a vampire looks like an average person. They all have the same traits though, including retractable, pointed, sharp teeth that protrude from their gums and go beyond human teeth. The vampire can summon this set of fangs if they feel threatened when they are preparing to feast or while they are attacking. However, they are nowhere near as long as the alphas, which are more claw-like and can be manipulated to grow at will. Some vampires have been observed to have sharp fingernails. Vampires are shown as being hundreds of years old or older since they live eternally. Their only source of nutrition is blood. Although they prefer human blood, vampires may also drink from other animals. Vampires must keep their victims alive because if they don't, their blood will turn poisonous. Some vampires, however, choose to subsist on donated blood bags rather than slaughter living things. Only beheading can exterminate vampires, who then leave behind a body that may be inspected to discover their vampire fangs. Blood from recently departed people can also be used to render vampires to be temporarily unable to do things. Vampires that Michael has improved are resistant to blood from the dead. While sunlight can be harmful to vampires, John Winchester compared it to a pretty terrible sunburn. It merely makes them uncomfortable rather than killing them. Because of this, vampires are typically nocturnal and won't venture outside when the sun is still rising. Being more sensitive to light than normal, vampires may also find other forms of light unpleasant. Michael's upgraded vampires appeared to be unaffected by sunlight since they strolled through it without being discouraged. A human's fragrance can be covered to ward off vampires by putting a combination of saffron, skunk, cabbage, and trillium in a fire or dusting one's garments with the ashes of this mixture. This will even mask the scent of another vampire. However, elder vampires may be able to overcome this due to their heightened senses. Vampires are susceptible to dangerous injuries even if they are not capable of being killed by severe physical harm and can recuperate. Benny Lafitte was unable to walk after a struggle with several vampires and needed Dean Winchester to bring him blood so that he could recover. Even after ingesting blood, Benny said that it would still take some time for him to recover from his wounds fully. He said that dismembered bodily parts could not grow back in vampires. Marlon responded as any human would have when Donna Hanscom kneecapped him, and he was sufficiently afraid of the harm Donna would do to him to cooperate. Later, it was demonstrated that even while they can survive headshots, as long as the bullet doesn't truly blow off their head, they are still temporarily rendered incapacitated. Vampires possess various special skills due to the blood of the alpha vampire flowing through their veins. Humans can't match the strength of vampires. Young vampires have an incredible physical strength boost, enabling them to move large things and dominate mature people. However, older vampires have the strength to defeat both their own kind and other species. The 600-year-old vampire Boris easily outweighed Dean, who at the time was still a fresh vampire in the process of change, proving his superior strength. A 3-year-old vampire is capable of lifting an adolescent to the top of a flagpole. The fangs of a vampire are retractable. Their fangs are extraordinarily powerful and may rip apart a person's neck while leaving horrific bite scars on the victim's body. Vampires are capable of moving more quickly than humans and even faster than moving cars. It's likely that a vampire's speed rises with age, much like their strength does. Vampires are highly agile. They are able to scale walls and leap off buildings without suffering any harm. Additionally, vampires have quicker reflexes than humans. After running into Kristen, Robert was able to grab her phone. One might conceivably carry a teenager up a flagpole. In comparison to humans, vampires have far more acute senses, which appear to be predisposed to their predatory nature. They have an improved sense of smell, can see in the dark, and can hear a person's heartbeat. Long distances may be covered by a vampire tracking the scent of a human blood, and John Winchester reportedly forewarned Sam and Dean that once a vampire knows your scent, it's for life. Luther was able to smell Kate from a distance, but none of the younger vampires could. This suggests that their senses, like their strength, appear to improve with age. Vampires that have transitioned do not experience bodily aging and are immune to human-affecting illnesses and diseases. If they are not put to death in unusual and specific ways, vampires might theoretically live eternally. Vampires are resistant to many common causes of death, including gunshots, stab wounds, and other types of traumas. They are also resistant to human-specific diseases and ailments, thus making them immortal. Although some vampires, unlike Kate, who was struck in the stomach with an arrow and only groaned in displeasure, can be extremely resilient to pain, while other vampires have shown similar human reactions to punches and kicks. Vampires may still be killed in some ways, most notably by decapitation, despite their resistance and immunity. Vampires can swiftly treat any wound and does not require amputation as long as they have access to enough human blood. Vampires are constantly hungry, yet they do not get tired quickly and they are easily capable of superhuman deeds. Djinn, a newly transformed vampire at the time, engaged a nest of more than 20 other vampires in a fight to the death and came out almost unaffected. Vampires are frequently seen silently approaching their prey, including skilled vampire hunters. Gordon was able to materialize twice behind people seemingly out of nowhere, despite being a recently converted and first hesitant vampire. Grigori. The Grigori were a particular group of mighty angels sent to Earth to guard humanity. They were among the original angels to come to Earth. They soon lost their footing and began to eat human souls. A small number of them survived on Earth, however, most were killed off. The Nephilim Jack Klein tracked down the surviving Grigori in 2020, and when Castiel murdered Kabael, the final survivor, the Grigori were declared extinct. The Grigori, who were once elite angels, are revealed to be incredibly strong. Even though one possessed the mark of Cain and the other two had expertise battling angels, one was easily able to overwhelm the seraphim and two hunters when he was given soul power. Despite the fact that Castiel was using an angel blade and the Grigori his sword, the other was unable to overcome Castiel in a duel. They have all of the typical angelic abilities, but to a greater degree. They abduct people who won't be noticed and slowly consume their souls over the course of years to feed on humanity. Similar to Djinn, they have been doing this for countless years while maintaining the victim's delusion of their own private heaven. But unlike Djinn, there is no turning back for the victim. Even if they are saved, they will ultimately perish from the feeding. Other angels cannot cure them. Castiel termed them an abomination because of their behaviors, which other angels find repulsive. They wield angel swords with their names engraved on them rather than angel blades. They also appear to consider humans and other angels to be inferior to them. Tamiel showed healing, a skill that regular angels lose when they fall, despite being cut off from heaven for thousands of years. The Grigori appear to possess these abilities within them, just like the seraphim and archangels. The Grigori are a powerful and elite race of heavenly beings, yet they are still susceptible to the same techniques employed to defeat angels. A Grigori can be killed with an angel sword. Their own swords may easily harm them. Djinn, armed only with the mark, was capable of doing harm. Without ever exerting their powers, the Nephilim Jack Klein was able to murder Grigori by tearing out and devouring their hearts. Even Kabael admitted that his sword couldn't kill Jack. A strong and exclusive class of angels are the Grigori. The Grigori are practically immortal because they have existed for thousands of years. The Grigori require a vehicle to communicate on Earth, just like other angels do. They require the vessel's consent to possess their victims or vessels, just like other angels do. They are adept at teleportation. They possess supernatural perception as a skill. Additionally, they have clairsentience. Kabael was aware of Jack's immense might. Castiel, who looked to be saving Jack, was also discernible to him as a sneak. With just a touch, a Grigori can put someone to sleep. A Grigori may make people dream of their ideal heavens and keep them there when they are away from them, as long as they are not feeding off of them. The Grigori may consume human souls and take their celestial power in this way. In order to do this, the Grigori Tamiel chopped off their arms and drew pieces of their souls into their lips. One said that even if the person was saved, this would surely result in their death, and that whatever damage they had could not be repaired. The Grigori, after the bulk were hunted down, were able to remain concealed from heaven for thousands of years. They were not uncovered by other angels until 2013. Nevertheless, they remained undiscovered in 2020 until Jack Klein learned about their positions via Billy. The Grigori are interestingly able to treat wounds and sicknesses since they are angels. Tamiel cured Ronnie Cartwright's blindness as well, which goes on to show their great healing powers. They are capable of biokinesis as well, which can be seen in the episode where Tamiel was able to restore Ronnie Cartwright's blindness with just a touch. As angels, the Grigori have a certain degree of invulnerability. Tamiel remained unharmed despite receiving several shots to the chest. The Grigori are a higher class of angels and, in contrast to other angels, are particularly powerful. Sam and Dean, two hunters, were easily defeated by Tamiel when they engaged in combat with Castiel at the same time. While Castiel was far from his full potential, Tamiel was endowed with the power of soul. Vanir. A Vanir is a fertility and wisdom-related Norse deity. The Norse pagan god represented by this Vanir offered the presenters prosperity, safety, and protection from all evil in exchange for a sacrifice. In the past, people would construct an effigy for the deity in their fields. It was utilized by the god to gather sacrifices and would frequently resemble a scarecrow. Its yearly cycle of sacrifices needed both a man and a female. Each Vanir had a connection to a holy tree. Its strength came from the tree, and if the tree were to be cut down, the deity would perish. One such Vanir was brought to America by colonists centuries ago, founding the settlement of Burkittsville in what is now Indiana. Falsely informing visiting tourist couples that their car's backlight required fixing and would be finished by sunset were how the Burkittsville locals were. Similar to Thanksgiving turkeys, they gave the travelers a final supper during this period to make them fatter for the Vanir. When the Vanir had a scarecrow, it was searching the orchard for its two sacrifices. They may guarantee the prosperity and preservation of their surroundings by receiving two human sacrifices, one male and one female. Diseases will skip the protected region and crops will grow bigger and quicker. But if the tributes aren't paid each year, the benefits will soon start to wane and finally stop altogether. They only have a small amount of influence on the weather, but if sacrifices are made, they will provide crops with ideal conditions, and they will make it rain as a warning if they are enraged. The scarecrow can be taken over at any time, and they can leave or enter at his discretion. The Vanir, a non-aging pagan god, will live in the scarecrow forever until the first tree is cut down. They also have superhuman strength and immunity. Vanirs possess only one weakness, the tree to which their power is tied to. Destruction of the tree would lead to their death. Reaper. Reapers are creatures who work for death, formerly believed to be wholly neutral, aligned with neither heaven nor hell nor purgatory. They help preserve the natural order. Castiel claims that Reapers occasionally show out in large crowds before major catastrophes like Mount Vesuvius eruptions in Pompeii. Reapers are among the most frequent supernatural beings in the series since they are death's minions. To experience death, Reapers are necessary. They wait until someone's life has come to an end, either because of an accident or just the normal course of events, and then touch that person to cause their death before escorting their souls to heaven or hell. However, they lack the ability to compel souls to follow them. It is unclear if they are necessary for human death alone or for death to affect all beings. Reapers are fully impartial entities that only care about upholding the natural order of life and death. They don't care about contracts, fate, or sometimes even other people. Reapers often sympathize with their victims despite their occasionally callous behavior behavior, but they won't accept excuses for anybody or anything. Reapers must persuade the souls to accompany them since they cannot compel anybody to do so. Typically, they do this by warning the souls that if they refuse, they would become ghosts and be bound on Earth forever. Reapers are impartial in other ways as well. They don't meddle with people's life too much outside of what is necessary for them to execute their jobs despite having the capacity to. One record of a Reaper defying the natural order does exist though. Once that Reaper who had been tied was let free, he immediately turned on and killed the person who had bound him. Only in this specific case, it is known that a Reaper really caused someone to pass away. This can be an exception since the individual in question caused the Reaper to defy nature by taking those in the place of others whose periods had expired. However, some Reapers do deviate from these patterns, creating rogue Reapers. These Reapers, unlike other Reapers, transport souls out of their afterlives and take them to another one for financial gain. They typically work for higher entities. They also transport live people, and at least one of them continued to transport souls of ghosts who had been put to rest. But on one occasion, he misdirected a soul on the orders of his superior. Castiel was dispatched by a few renegade Reapers who had to track him down by traditional means. Reapers are allegedly capable of feeling emotions, although at times looking emotionless. They also seem to have free will, albeit they don't use it very often. It is indicated that Reapers view death in a way that angels view God. How they came into being is a mystery. Thousands, if not millions, of Reapers went to see Death as soon as he was free to give instructions. Additionally, several of them followed him all across Chicago. Tessa sums up their connection similarly. He calls us, we don't call him. The Reapers don't appear to have a singular form. Some of them take the form of attractive ladies, older males dressed in suits or Mortician garb, or ghost-like figures. However, they typically appear as older guys dressed in black Mortician attire. They do, however, have genders. Reapers can possess humans. This may be how certain spirits are shown as being able to physically materialize, such that people may see them as opposed to being invisible to everyone but ghosts. One of the rules of the cosmos is that once one death dies, the following Reaper to die will be raised from the dead and elevated to replace death. Reapers are very strong and have a wide range of skills because they are the horseman Death's personal slaves. They are extraordinarily strong. Reapers have the ability to obliterate their physical presence and are only visible while working with the dead or at their own discretion. Angels, devils, and departed people may all see them since they are spiritual entities. Within the veil, Reapers may see ghosts, angels, and devils. Reapers are capable of instantaneous teleportation between any 2 points in the cosmos. They have easy access to all afterlife realms. They may also take living people with them. However, this goes against their function in the natural order and is only given by renegade Reapers. However, when Metatron shut heaven, they were unable to transfer souls there using their teleportation abilities. They have the access to the veil, heaven, hell, and purgatory. Additionally, they have the ability to transport other people along with them in the form of their spirit, soul, or even life. However, if spiritual realms have been sealed off, like when Metatron shut the gates of heaven, Reapers were unable to travel between them and transport souls until he was vanquished. Reapers are capable of raising the dead, although they typically refrain from doing so out of respect for the natural order. Reapers are incredibly knowledgeable about the cosmos and are aware of when a person should be born and when they should pass away. Many other ideas are also understood by them, such as the boundaries of power. Reapers have the power to halt time, forever destroying anything that measures time. Reapers have astral projection abilities. Reapers never get weary and will keep bugging their victims until something supernatural upsets them. However, they do occasionally like their food. Reapers are extremely pain resistant and challenging to kill. Higher creatures can be killed using magic, certain divine weapons, and other means. Humans can be touched to death by Reapers. Reapers have the ability to move things and beings mentally. Reapers are immortal because they are not affected by hunger, illness, or aging. They even float or hover in their actual state. Reapers may appear in seemingly any manner they desire to be viewed by humans, changing their perception of them perceptually. The Reapers do this to spirits in order to conceal their more terrifying form and improve communication with their prey. Reapers have the ability to heal sickness and and wounds, but they must transfer the wound or disease to another person. Reapers have the power to both erase memories and restore them in mortals. Reapers can travel through anything tangible on Earth without getting hurt, whether they are in their original forms or in vessels. A Reaper's arrival may make the lights in a room flicker or go out. A Reaper might also make a car lose power and come to a stop. Unexpected wind gusts can occur when a Reaper arrives. Reapers have the ability to alter human biology. One enraged Reaper once infected a victim with mental illness, causing an early death as retaliation. One more succeeded in stopping the Winchesters' hearts. Reapers can appear on their own or through a vessel, as was seen when one did so in order to approach Castiel. As part of the Soul Bomb, a Reaper demonstrated the power to draw 200,000 souls from the veil into a crystal. When Bobby was in a coma, his Reaper was able to communicate with him in his subconscious. Reapers have a few disadvantages despite being very strong creatures. Reapers were under Death's command since he was their master. Reapers can be subdued or possessed by higher demons. They might be slain, captured, or imprisoned using magic. Reapers can be killed with Death's sight. A Reaper trap will keep a Reaper, even two of them, in place and stop them from fleeing while also weakening them. Angel swords have the ability to kill Reapers. Reapers can be killed by the first blade. They can also be destroyed by archangels. Alternate Michael was able to recognize Violet's face and terrify her by explaining how he had reduced her people to servitude on his planet. The incinerating spell can kill Reapers for unexplained reasons.
Be the same!
Cherubim. Humans also refer to cherubs as cupids. These angels appear to be at the absolute bottom of heaven's food chain. As it is their duty, they are entrusted to using ways to couple significant lineages together. The actual shape of a cupid, which naturally flits with its wings and sparkles brightly, is undetectable. They are frequently docile and pacifistic and are adept at manipulating the fostering of love. Yet, they also carry angel swords. They are upbeat, yet quickly depressed. One of the components of the spell to expel all angels from heaven is the Cupid's bow. They appeared to have less grace than any other kind of angel based on how little grace Lucifer was able to absorb from one. Cherubims have only two weaknesses: higher beings and angel blades. They have a lot of strength for a low-tier angel, yet it is nothing in comparison to higher angels' might. They have been demonstrated to have a fighting chance against ordinary angels, but not against archangels, not even one of low grace. Cherubs have the ability to become invisible to those in the material world, although other angels and demons can still see them. Cherubim are immortal, yet an angel blade can end their lives. The cherub was only momentarily uncomfortable when Djinn punched him in the face, hurting him more emotionally than physically, whereas Djinn was wincing from the recoil, demonstrating a much greater physical stamina. They are hence immune to susceptibility. Cherubim need vessels to appear on Earth safely, and these vessels must have their consent to do so. People can fall in love with one another because of cherubim. With it, they can influence human emotion and make some individuals fall in love with one another. They encourage human affection by using their bows. Cherubs are a powerful sort of angel while also being a very weak one. Cherubim are also able to recognize other angels. Cherubs have excellent bow accuracy.
Whoa.
Bisan. A Malayan cicada spirit is known as Bisan or Bisan. According to legend, Bisan, which are quite uncommon in America, were first discovered in the Malaysian woodlands. Since they cannot reproduce in their actual forms, which lack genitalia, they surface from underground every 27 years to take possession of humans through the mouth and breed. When possessed, a human will get colorless complexion, sharp teeth that resemble thorns, bright green eyes, and eventually no genitalia at all. They frequently chitter as a mating call, just like actual cicadas. The females are returned to their burrows after mating, where they eventually perish. Before hatching, the following generation of larval Bisan lays dormant in their wombs for an additional 27 years. Since they are entirely devoid of genitalia, it is unknown how they reproduce in this state, but Bisan have been seen engaging in what appears to be sexual activity. In the Colorado town of Gunnison, London, the Bisan mating cycle was turned into an urban legend. Etta Fraser claimed that once per generation, residents of the town would go bonkers, getting into fights and having affairs in the woods. Their eyes would sparkle like emeralds because they would be so overcome with lust. Etta's grandma referred to the orgies as the chitters because there was a lot of buzzing and rattling coming from the woods. They then would vanish, never to be seen or heard from again. It is demonstrated that the number of Bisan varies between cycles. There were 8 in one cycle, 12 in the next, and 6 in the third. This presumably has to do with how many eggs they can produce while mating before going extinct. Every time the cycle started on the spring equinox and continued for around 2 days. They are stronger than most humans and can easily outnumber most of them. The human body serves as a kind of shell for the Bisan, who can easily enter people's mouths to take possession of them. A Bisan's lifespan, however, is just approximately 2 days, and they must marry within that time in order to preserve their species. A Bisan's head being cut off will undoubtedly kill it. According to actual folklore, the Bisan is a kind spirit. However, in supernatural, they are extremely violent and evil. Crossroad Demon. Crossroad demons are demons entrusted with making agreements with people in order to purchase souls for hell. These agreements entail the demon fulfilling the human's wish in return for possession of the person's soul, leading to the person's death and subsequent transformation into a demon in hell. Because they might be specifically called by people looking to make deals at crossroads, crossroad demons get their moniker. Red-eyed demons typically serve as crossroad demons because of their teleportation abilities. The king of the crossroads, formerly Crowley, is who they answer to. Barthelmess reigned as the king of crossroads for several years following Crowley's elevation to the position of king of hell until his own passing in 2017. The demon that appears in the series most frequently prefers to take over the bodies of stunningly beautiful brunette women who captivate men who get sucked into making the tempting bargains. But like other demons, their actual form is black smoke. Some crossroad demons have demonstrated the capacity to alter the agreements they have made in order to suit their own needs. Additionally, crossroad demons have been seen on occasion to control their contracts. Additionally, there is a technicality that permits a crossroad demon to take someone's soul early, even if they were not personally responsible for the person's accident. But under Crowley's rule, this was prohibited because it was deemed a dubious practice. They are demons and thus have all the typical demon abilities. Despite being salesmen at their core, they are more powerful and physically stronger than black-eyed demons. Additionally, they seem to have influence over certain hellhounds, which is how they primarily drag souls to hell. To assist with their negotiations and bargains, they have the ability to astral project, assassinate, and alter reality. They can also live forever as demons until they are killed.
Horsemen, huh? Well, we got wars.
4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The biblical equivalents of the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are death, war, famine, and pestilence. All of these are strong forces, but death stands out as the strongest among them and one of the most potent monsters in the annals of the supernatural. The 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse are a group of 4 extraordinarily formidable beings that personify the 4 primary ideas of the apocalypse. They have the ability to take human form, which can be injured in human-like ways. They go by the names of war, famine, pestilence, and death respectively. Each wears a unique ring that channels their unique power. Without it, all save death's corporeal form would be lost. Additionally, they have all gotten with the times and drive cars that are painted to mirror the color of their mythical steed. The horsemen have an extremely biased perspective of humanity, and some of them believe that all they are doing is bringing out the inherent evil in people. Both war and famine have expressed disgust and scorn toward how readily corruptible humans are and what they are capable of, saying that humans just need a little push to accomplish terrible things. Pestilence claims that the concept that disease is a negative thing is only because sick people are sick, and he doesn't comprehend why God has such love for humans, seeming somewhat envious of the fact. Pestilence, in fact, prefers bacteria to people. That says a lot about them, due to the fact that there is scant to no prior knowledge of the horsemen, it is not entirely clear when and how they came into existence. Since death has always existed beside God since the beginning, he is the only horseman known to have existed before the creation of the cosmos. The origins of the other three, however, are unknown. One of the best characters in Supernatural is Death, the oldest of the four horsemen. He is immune to harm, just like other horsemen. Death's scythe is the sole weapon that can take a horseman's life, although even that is only a temporary solution because Death is always replaced by the next Reaper to perish, as happened with Billy in season 12. Elves. One variety of fairy is the elf. Here is what is known about them, despite the fact that it is not much. Because they are smaller than a typical being, they can complete jobs with more accuracy and in greater numbers. In addition to their size, Djinn chose to make them inebriated with cream rather than fight them physically. Cream is one of their main weaknesses, as you may have figured by this point. They enjoy cream, which makes them drunk like alcohol. The presence of multiple grain products also draws their attention. If someone pours anything in front of them that contains a lot of grains, they must pause and count each grain individually. Furthermore, even powerful fairies can be distracted by salt, as was the case with Wayne Whitaker. Flying monkeys. Oz is home to animals called flying monkeys. The Wicked Witch had dominion over them. Flying monkeys have wings, talons, and brilliant red-yellow eyes as implied by their name. They cooperate to create swarms that grow big enough to be mistaken for a bank of ominous clouds. Other than flying, little is known about their powers and abilities. Furthermore, it is uncertain what their vulnerabilities are. They may be classified as a type of fairy because they are from Oz. In order to conquer Earth in 2013, the Wicked Witch summoned her army of flying monkeys by using the key to Oz to unlock a door in the Men of Letters bunker that led to Oz. Charlie Bradbury murdered the Wicked Witch with the ruby slippers before the army could get to the door and shut it just as the flying monkey approached, locking them within Oz. They have the ability to fly, which makes them cooler.
He's got. No, I got it.
Gog and Magog. According to biblical legend, Gog and Magog were ape-like creatures formed of rock and sand that evolved into ancient warriors. Gog and Magog were formerly animals made of rock and sand that were said to have been wiped off during the Great Flood. Both were given swords by an unidentified god. Gog and Magog gained notoriety as warriors in antiquity for having subjugated and enslaved half of the Fertile Crescent. Later, in a place without a location and a period without a time, they were bonded by a priest. Since being exiled, Gog and Magog have grown to be legendary figures that are mentioned in both Bible and the Demon Tablet. They were sometimes referred to as lands and other times as brothers in the legends. They may be killed by any weapon created by gods or when they are touched by gods. They may be killed by angel blades as it is a weapon touched by God. They could be murdered by their own swords since they were created by a deity. Both of them were murdered by Magog's sword, although Gog's sword, despite not being seen in the show, is also capable of doing so because it was fashioned by the same deity. Priests have the power to exile people to a place without a location and a period without a time, thousands of years ago. So one of their vulnerabilities is magic. Castiel believed that because their species had been wiped out by the flood, they were also vulnerable to drowning. They possess great strengths too. Gog was stronger than a fallen seraphim, while Magog's foot stamping on the ground made the ground quake, demonstrating their incredible power. Gog and Magog were resistant to the majority of damage and injuries. Only weapons that had been created or touched by God were capable of killing them. Gog and Magog were around for a very long time before they died. Therefore, they are almost immortal. All these creatures and monsters have at some point or the other scared the shit out of fans. Not only are the concepts behind the characters scary, but the designs are also fabulous. The fact that many of these monsters are taken from mythical beasts or pre-existing mythological creatures from various cultures adds to their fear factor. What do you think of these creatures? Which one is your favorite? Tell us in the comment section below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.